Captain Maya Chen gripped the command rail as the U.S. Defiant shuddered under another direct hit. Klaxons blared while emergency lights bathed the bridge in crimson. Through the view screen, she watched the last of Earth's fleet dissolve into expanding clouds of debris against the star-flecked void. 300 ships reduced to one in less than 6 hours. Incoming transmission from the Arvani flagship, her communications officer announced, voice cracking with exhaustion. The alien commander appeared on screen, his crystalline exoskeleton glittering under the lights of his immaculate bridge. Your resistance is mathematically futile. Our algorithms predicted your defeat with 99.87% certainty. Submit now, and we will permit a percentage of your species to survive as productive assets. Maya noticed something the aliens had overlooked, a gravitational anomaly from a nearby pulsar that disrupted sensor readings for precisely 8.3 seconds every cycle. The Arvani, for all their technological superiority, had dismissed it as irrelevant to the battle calculations. Signal the engine room, she whispered to her XO. Divert all remaining power to forward shields and prepare for sprint velocity on my mark. Captain, her tactical officer protested. Collision course with the Arvani flagship would be suicide. Maida's lips curled into the ghost of a smile. Then we die making them remember us. Humanity doesn't calculate odds when our home is at stake. The Defiant's desperate maneuver caught the overconfident Arvani completely unprepared. The human vessel, burning its engines beyond safety tolerances, slipped through the enemy formation during the brief sensor disruption. Warning systems blared across the bridge as structural integrity reached critical levels. Impact in 10 seconds, the helm officer reported, fingers dancing across controls that were already beginning to melt from the overload. Maya stood tall, eyes fixed on the rapidly approaching Arvani flagship. Its elegant crystalline structure gleamed like a massive diamond against the blackness of space. Beautiful and deadly. The perfect symbol of the Arvani themselves. For Earth, she said quietly. The collision ripped through the Arvani command section in a spectacular eruption of light and energy. The Defiant's reinforced bow punctured the alien vessel's seemingly impenetrable hull, driving deep into its heart before both ships detonated in a blinding flash visible from Earth's surface. In the immediate aftermath, Arvani communication networks went silent. Their perfectly coordinated fleet movements dissolved into confusion. Without the centralized command structure feeding their tactical algorithms, individual Arvani vessels fell back to pre-programmed contingencies, none of which had accounted for the loss of their flagship. Back on Earth, Defense Command watched in stunned silence as sensor readings confirmed the impossible. The Arvani invasion had stalled, if only temporarily. She actually did it, General Ibrahim whispered, staring at the tactical display where two massive debris fields now orbited each other. One ship against their entire command structure, and she found a way. How long do we have? Asked Secretary General Okafor, the highest-ranking government official to survive the initial assault. Ibrahim studied the readouts from their remaining orbital sensors. The Arvani are regrouping, but their coordination is compromised. Days, maybe weeks before they reorganize sufficiently for a full ground invasion. Then we have work to do, Okafor said, turning to the assembled leaders from around the world. Captain Chen and her crew just bought humanity something precious, time. Now we need to make it count. In the void where the Defiant had made its final stand, a single escape pod tumbled away from the debris field, its systems powered down to avoid detection. Inside, Lieutenant Commander Elijah Torres clutched the data crystal Captain Chen had pressed into his hand moments before ordering him to evacuate. Get this to Earth, she had told him. It contains everything we've learned about their technology, their tactics. Tell them. She had paused, eyes distant for just a moment. Tell them we don't know when to quit. As his tiny vessel drifted toward the relative safety of the asteroid belt, Torres gazed back at the fading light of the explosion that had claimed his captain and crewmates. He made a silent promise to ensure their sacrifice would not be in vain. Humanity's last stand had just become humanity's first counterattack. Captain Maya Chen gripped the command rail as the U.S. Defiant shuddered under another direct hit. Klaxons blared while emergency lights bathed the bridge in crimson. Through the view screen, she watched the last of Earth's fleet dissolve into expanding clouds of debris against the star-flecked void. 300 ships reduced to one in less than 6 hours. Incoming transmission from the Arvani flagship, her communications officer announced, voice cracking with exhaustion. The alien commander appeared on screen, his crystalline exoskeleton glittering under the lights of his immaculate bridge. Your resistance is mathematically futile. Our algorithms predicted your defeat with 99.87% certainty. Submit now, and we will permit a percentage of your species to survive as productive assets. Maya noticed something the aliens had overlooked, a gravitational anomaly from a nearby pulsar that disrupted sensor readings for precisely 8.3 seconds every cycle. The Arvani, for all their technological superiority, had dismissed it as irrelevant to the battle calculations. Signal the engine room, she whispered to her XO. Divert all remaining power to forward shields and prepare for sprint velocity on my mark. Captain, her tactical officer protested. Collision course with the Arvani flagship would be suicide. Maya's lips curled into the ghost of a smile. Then we die making them remember us. Humanity doesn't calculate odds when our home is at stake. The Defiant's desperate maneuver caught the overconfident Arvani completely unprepared. The human vessel, burning its engines beyond safety tolerances, slipped through the enemy formation during the brief sensor disruption. Warning systems blared across the bridge as structural integrity reached critical levels. Impact in 10 seconds, the helm officer reported, fingers dancing across controls that were already beginning to melt from the overload. Maya stood tall, eyes fixed on the rapidly approaching Arvani flagship. Its elegant crystalline structure gleamed like a massive diamond against the blackness of space. Beautiful and deadly, the perfect symbol of the Arvani themselves. For Earth, she said quietly. The collision ripped through the Arvani command section in a spectacular eruption of light and energy. The Defiant's reinforced bow punctured the alien vessel's seemingly impenetrable hull, driving deep into its heart before both ships detonated in a blinding flash visible from Earth's surface. In the immediate aftermath, Arvani communication networks went silent. Their perfectly coordinated fleet movements dissolved into confusion. Without the centralized command structure feeding their tactical algorithms, individual Arvani vessels fell back to pre-programmed contingencies, none of which had accounted for the loss of their flagship. Back on Earth, Defense Command watched in stunned silence as sensor readings confirmed the impossible. The Arvani invasion had stalled, if only temporarily. She actually did it, General Ibrahim whispered, staring at the tactical display where two massive debris fields now orbited each other. One ship against their entire command structure, and she found a way. How long do we have? Asked Secretary General Okafor, the highest-ranking government official to survive the initial assault. Ibrahim studied the readouts from their remaining orbital sensors. The Arvani are regrouping, but their coordination is compromised. Days, maybe weeks before they reorganize sufficiently for a full ground invasion. Then we have work to do, Okafor said, turning to the assembled leaders from around the world. Captain Chen and her crew just bought humanity something precious, time. Now we need to make it count. In the void where the Defiant had made its final stand, a single escape pod tumbled away from the debris field, its systems powered down to avoid detection. Inside, Lieutenant Commander Elijah Torres clutched the data crystal Captain Chen had pressed into his hand moments before ordering him to evacuate. Get this to Earth, she had told him. It contains everything we've learned about their technology, their tactics. Tell them. She had paused, eyes distant for just a moment. Tell them we don't know when to quit. As his tiny vessel drifted toward the relative safety of the asteroid belt, Torres gazed back at the fading light of the explosion that had claimed his captain and crewmates. He made a silent promise to ensure their sacrifice would not be in vain. Humanity's last stand had just become humanity's first counterattack. Dr. Elijah Torres hadn't seen sunlight in 73 days. His research laboratory, buried deep within Titan's methane ice crust, was humanity's best-kept secret. So far, the gentle hum of life support systems provided the only soundtrack to his work as he hunched over his workstation, analyzing the data he'd escaped with during Captain Chen's last stand. "Play it again," he instructed his AI assistant, rubbing bloodshot eyes as holographic Arveni tissue samples rotated before him. The neural structure glowed with unnatural precision, networks arranged in patterns too perfect for natural evolution. "Magnify section 37, Torres directed, leaning forward. "There. That's not random mutation, that's engineered." Dr. Lakshmi Kapoor joined him at the display, her face illuminated by the blue light of the hologram. "You're saying they're artificial?" "Not just artificial," Torres replied, expanding a subsection of neural pathways, created by someone they refer to in their own archives as the precursors. They didn't evolve. They were designed as the perfect logical species. More stunning was his second discovery, a curious neural cluster that activated when the tissue was exposed to simulated combat losses. "It's like a circuit breaker," Torres explained, pointing to the activation patterns, a hardwired instinct to retreat when casualties exceed certain parameters. "The precursors built in a preservation failsafe. A weakness we can exploit," Lakshmi whispered, eyes wide with the implications. 500 million kilometers away, Zara Okafor led 20 resistance fighters through the flooded subway tunnels beneath New Lagos. Their mission: sabotage the massive Arvani processing center where humans were being evaluated for usefulness. Water dripped from corroded pipes as they moved silently through the darkness, their breathing equipment the only sound echoing off the tiled walls. Above them, Arvani patrols marched with mechanical precision, their crystalline exoskeletons gleaming under the harsh lights they had installed throughout the occupied city. "Remember," Zara whispered to her team as they applied chameleonic adaptive camouflage, "they see us as resources, not enemies." That's their mistake. They measure value in predictable outputs, but they can't calculate human ingenuity or will. The Resistance's midnight assault should have failed against the Arvani's superior security systems, but Zara had discovered the aliens couldn't comprehend human willingness to sacrifice for abstract concepts like freedom. They hadn't bothered to scan for operatives who voluntarily accepted lethal radiation exposure to bypass their detectors. "Charges set," reported Adebayo, Zara's demolitions expert. "Countdown initiated." Zara nodded, watching as 3 other teams synchronized their attacks across the facility. "Begin Phase 2. Malik, access their databanks. Layla, start the evacuation." The processing center erupted in carefully orchestrated chaos. Explosion after explosion tore through the Arvani's perfect symmetrical architecture. Their response teams deployed with mathematical precision, exactly as Zara had predicted. They moved to counter the most statistically significant threats first, leaving secondary systems vulnerable. "They're still calculating as if we value our lives over our mission," Zara observed as her team extracted crucial Arvani databanks, while evacuation teams led thousands of captured humans to freedom. An Arvani commander appeared at the end of the corridor, its crystalline form somehow conveying confusion despite its alien features. "Your actions defy statistical optimization," it stated, raising a weapon. "Survival probability: 17%. Zara smiled grimly as her team took up defensive positions. "We're not trying to survive. We're trying to win." The firefight lasted less than a minute. 2 of Zara's team fell, but the Arvani commander and its security detail were neutralized. As they retreated with the stolen data and 3,000 freed captives, Zara caught a glimpse of the New Lagos skyline through a broken wall. Arvani structures rising like perfect geometric shapes amid the rubble of human buildings. "Dr. Torres needs this data," she told her second-in-command, securing the extracted Arvani memory crystals. "If there's a weakness in these creatures, he'll find it." As dawn broke over the occupied city, the resistance disappeared into the underground network of tunnels and shelters. Behind them, the processing center burned, a chaotic wound in the Arvani's ordered conquest of Earth. Above the planet, orbiting Arvani command ships registered the attack and adjusted their algorithms. Yet something remained missing from their calculations, the inexplicable human willingness to fight on despite overwhelming odds, a statistical anomaly they still could not resolve. Commander Jackson Way addressed the captains of humanity's ragtag fleet from the Bridge of the Redemption, a converted mining vessel with hastily mounted weapon systems. Holographic displays showed 87 ships of various sizes hidden throughout the Kuiper Belt's asteroid swarms. The makeshift war room hummed with tension as the assembled officers, some military, many civilian, waited for Way's assessment. "We've lost contact with the Ganymede resistance cell," he announced grimly. "The Arvani are tightening their grip on the outer colonies. They're also becoming more aggressive in their search patterns." Lieutenant Commander Soraya Patel, formerly a civilian asteroid miner before the invasion forced her into military service, gestured toward the tactical display. "Their patrol routes are becoming predictable. They're expanding outward in a perfect logarithmic spiral, efficient but inflexible." Classic Arvani thinking. Way nodded, his weathered face illuminated by the blue light of the hologram. "They're calculating the mathematically optimal search pattern, not anticipating what we'd actually do." "Which is what, exactly?" asked Captain Rodriguez of the Hermes, a retrofitted passenger liner now carrying missile batteries where luxury suites once stood. "We can't outgun them. We barely outrun them. How long can we keep playing hide and seek in the outer system?" Way's expression hardened. "Until we find a way to hit back. Earth is counting on us to keep the Arvani occupied out here while they rebuild planetary defenses." The meeting was interrupted by proximity alarms blaring across the ship. Lieutenant Rivera at communications looked up with wide eyes. Arvani patrol fleet detected at the edge of the Sedna sector. 6 cruisers, 24 support vessels. "They're earlier than predicted," Soraya noted, already calculating intercept trajectories. "They're adapting their search patterns." Way studied the incoming data, mind racing through options. Standard doctrine called for immediate retreat deeper into the Orc cloud. Instead, he made the decision that would define human resistance. "Battle stations," he ordered, his calm voice belying the audacity of what he was about to propose. "Prepare to engage." Disbelieving looks spread across the bridge. Captain Rodriguez was the first to find his voice. "Commander, that's a suicide run. We should scatter and rendezvous at the backup coordinates. Conventional wisdom says we should preserve our forces," Way acknowledged. "But humans have never won wars by being cautious when our backs are against the wall. The Arvani expect us to retreat, so we attack." He divided the fleet into tactical groups, each assigned to specific targets in the approaching Arvani formation. "Use the asteroid field. Get close. Their weapons are designed for long-range precision, not close-quarters combat. Rodriguez, your faster ships will draw their flanking vessels into the debris field here. Soraya, your mining ships know these rocks better than anyone. Set up ambush points here, here, and here." As the human vessels moved into position, Way opened a fleet-wide channel. "This is Commander Way. The enemy expects us to run, to calculate our odds and choose survival. Today, we show them that humans fight hardest when victory seems impossible. Today, we teach them to fear us." The resulting Kuiper stand became legendary. Way exploited the dense asteroid field with maneuvers no Arvani would attempt, luring their perfect formations into chaotic debris clouds, where their superior firepower meant nothing against human pilots willing to scrape their hulls against asteroids at suicidal velocities. The Redemption shuddered as an Arvani cruiser scored a direct hit on their port side. "Decks 5 through 8 decompressing," reported the damage control officer. "Sealing bulkheads. Maintain course," Way ordered, watching as 2 converted mining vessels used their excavation lasers to slice through an Arvani destroyer's propulsion systems. "Press the advantage." 3 hours later, The battle concluded with results no strategic algorithm could have predicted. The humans had lost 19 ships, with casualties exceeding 40%, figures that should have triggered immediate surrender according to Arvani calculations. Instead, the human fleet had destroyed 63 Arvani vessels, a casualty ratio their strategic algorithms had calculated as impossible. As the surviving Arvani ships retreated in disarray, Wei stood amid the sparking systems of his damaged bridge. "Send word to Earth," he instructed his communications officer. "Tell them the tide is turning. Tell them we've proven the Arvani can bleed." For the first time, the invaders experienced something unfamiliar: doubt. Dr. Torres stared at the neural interface readings with growing excitement. His laboratory on Titan had been working nonstop for months to understand the Arvani's engineered biology. The holographic display pulsed with activity as he manipulated the three-dimensional model of alien neural pathways. "It's beautiful in its way," he told his chief assistant, Dr. Lakshmi Kapoor. "The precursors built in this neural failsafe to prevent the Arvani from fighting to extinction. When their casualties exceed 28% in any engagement, this cluster triggers an overwhelming impulse to withdraw and reassess. But humans have no such limitation," Lakshmi observed, her fingers tracing the outline of the alien brain structure. Torres nodded, highlighting specific neural junctions. "Our evolutionary history rewarded persistence against overwhelming odds. Early humans who kept hunting despite initial failures or continued searching for water despite setbacks passed on those genes. The Arvani were designed for efficiency. Humans were shaped by adversity." The scientists worked through the night, testing various stimuli against the salvage Arvani neural tissue. Sleep deprivation and caffeine had become their constant companions since the invasion began. "Try electromagnetic pulse pattern Delta 7, Torres suggested, suppressing a yawn. "Frequency modulated to match their neural firing rate." The tissue sample on the scanning bed twitched visibly as the pulse washed over it. Sensors registered a cascade of activity through the withdrawal center, a perfect match for the patterns observed during retreat scenarios. "We've got it," Torres whispered, hardly believing their success. "A targeted EM pulse that triggers their withdrawal response artificially. We can make them retreat even when their tactical position is strong." Lakshmi's excitement faded quickly as practical reality set in. The effective range would be limited, a few hundred meters at most, and we'd need to get this information to both Earth Resistance and Commander Wei's fleet. "We need a courier," Torres agreed. "Someone who can slip past the Arvani blockade." After reviewing the minimal personnel files available at the hidden base, they selected Meera Patel, a 22-year-old pilot whose pre-invasion experience included asteroid racing, an illegal but popular sport that required exceptional reflexes and improvisational skills. "The mission parameters give you a 7% survival probability," Torres explained bluntly when Meera arrived at his laboratory. The young woman's eyes, already hardened by months of war, didn't waver. "Better odds than Earth has if we do nothing," she replied. They modified a stealth shuttle with experimental sensor-absorbing materials, installing a specially designed transmitter that could deliver Torres' research data in a compressed burst. The plan was simple in concept, nearly impossible in execution. Slip through the Arvani blockade, deliver the neural disruptor data to both Earth and the scattered fleet. Meera's journey became a testament to human adaptability. When Arvani patrols detected her heat signature near Europa, she vented her cabin atmosphere and drifted in her vacuum suit for 19 hours to avoid detection, surviving on the suit's emergency oxygen supply while her body temperature dropped dangerously low. When fuel cells failed near Mars, she improvised a solar sail from emergency blankets, using the faint pressure of solar radiation to maintain a trajectory toward the inner system. When her communications were compromised, she encoded messages in apparent navigational errors that only humans would recognize as deliberate. The Arvani pursuit ships followed probable trajectories and optimal interception courses. Meera survived because she did what the mathematically precise Arvani considered irrational: risking death in a dozen different ways, rather than accepting the certainty of capture. 16 days into her mission, Mira's shuttle, now barely functional after multiple emergency repairs, approached Earth's gravity well. The planet below bore the scars of Arvani occupation, once great cities reduced to geometric patterns of destruction where resistance had been strongest. Unidentified vessel, transmit authorization codes immediately, came the tense voice of an Earth defense operator as her ship was targeted by ground-based weapons. Sierra Echo Hotel 693. Mira responded, using the emergency protocol Torres had given her, carrying Project Persistence data from Titan. Request immediate secure landing clearance. Within minutes, her shuttle was escorted by 2 camouflaged Earth fighters to a hidden facility in what had once been the Andes Mountains. As she stepped from her damaged vessel on shaking legs, a woman approached, General Zara Okafor, whose resistance exploits had already become legendary. "You've just changed the course of this war," Zara told her, accepting the data crystal. "Half our planet-fought Titan base was destroyed months ago." Mira managed a tired smile. "Humanity doesn't quit, General. Not even when the odds say we should." Operation Persistence began with an audacious deception. Commander Wei's fleet, now equipped with Torres neural disruptors modified for ship-to-ship combat, launched what appeared to be a desperate, disorganized attack against multiple Arvani outposts simultaneously. The Arvani, following their tactical algorithms, consolidated their forces to crush what they perceived as a chaotic last stand. "They think we're being irrational," Wei told his officers aboard the flagship Redemption, its hull still bearing scars from the Kuiper stand. "Their tactical computers are calculating this as a 98% probability of complete human defeat. They can't comprehend that we're counting on their predictability." Soraya Patel studied the holographic display showing Arvani fleet movements. "They're responding exactly as projected. Their main force is converging on Jupiter's orbital command station." "And their blind spot?" Wei asked, though he already knew the answer. "Maintaining position on the dark side of Callisto," Soraya confirmed. 37 vessels, all modified with the neural disruptors, awaiting your command. Wei nodded grimly. "Commence Phase 2. May our ancestors watch over us today." As the Arvani fleet converged on Jupiter's orbital command station to counter Wei's apparent main thrust, the true human offensive revealed itself. Dozens of stealth-modified civilian vessels, previously undetected, activated Torres neural disruptors at point-blank range against key Arvani command ships. The effect was immediate and devastating. Arvani vessels, each a marvel of crystalline technology and mathematical precision, suddenly broke formation. Some fired randomly into space. Others turned on their allies. Many simply powered down critical systems and drifted. Aboard the Arvani command vessel, Supreme Tactical Coordinator X-7291 experienced something no Arvani had felt in centuries of conquest: neural cascade failure. Warning signals flooded its engineered consciousness as the withdrawal imperative overrode all tactical considerations. "Disengage," it ordered, voice distorted by competing neural commands. "Survival protocols activate. Withdraw and reassess." On Earth, Zara synchronized a global uprising with Wei's space offensive. The resistance had spent months distributing makeshift weapons and training civilians, not for conventional warfare, but for overwhelming chaos the Arvani couldn't predict. "Hit them everywhere at once," Zara instructed through the underground communication network from her command center beneath the ruins of New Delhi. "They can't calculate randomness. Attack with whatever you have. They won't expect humans to charge energy weapons with farming tools and kitchen knives." Around the planet, resistance cells launched simultaneous attacks on Arvani installations. In Shanghai, elderly gardeners detonated homemade explosives hidden in flower pots. In Buenos Aires, teenagers on stolen Arvani hover platforms dropped neural disruptors onto patrol units from above. In Lagos, fishermen used salvaged Arvani technology to short-circuit the foundation pillars of the alien headquarters. Zora monitored the global situation from a wall of jury-rigged displays. Status report, she demanded as the command center shook from nearby detonations. New York resistance has captured the processing center, reported her communications officer. London reports heavy fighting, but Arvani forces are displaying disorganized responses. Tokyo has successfully deployed 5 neural disruptors at the central command hub. The neural disruptors, coupled with unexpectedly severe casualties, triggered withdrawal protocols across the Arvani command structure. For the first time, the invaders retreated in disarray, their certainty shattered by human unpredictability. In orbit, whitewashed as the Arvani fleet broke apart, individual vessels jumping to faster than light without coordination. Press the advantage, he ordered. Target their remaining command ships before they can regroup. The space battle raged for hours, but the momentum had irrevocably shifted. Human vessels, despite taking heavy losses, continued fighting long past the point where Arvani tactical doctrine predicted surrender. The neural disruptors created chaos in the enemy ranks, while human determination created opportunities the invaders couldn't anticipate. As the last major Arvani vessel retreated from Earth orbit, Wei allowed himself a moment of silent remembrance for the ships and crews lost in the offensive. Victory had come at a terrible cost, nearly half his fleet destroyed, communication lost with dozens of others. Sir, Soraya approached quietly. Earth Defense Command is requesting to speak with you. They're reporting successful operations in all major theaters. The Arvani are in full retreat globally. Wei nodded, straightening his uniform before approaching the communications array. The face that appeared on the screen was exhausted but triumphant. General Zara Okafor, now bearing a fresh scar across her left cheek. Commander Wei, she greeted him. For the first time since the invasion began, Earth's skies belong to humanity again. The fight isn't over, General, Wei cautioned. They'll be back, and in greater numbers. Zara's expression hardened with determination. Then we'll be ready. Humanity has remembered its greatest strength today. And what's that? Wei asked. We don't know when to quit, she replied simply. Admiral Elizabeth Rice surveyed the devastation from the United Earth Government's emergency headquarters in the Himalayan bunker complex. Holographic casualty reports scrolled endlessly across the briefing table. 42 million humans dead in the global uprising. Nearly half of Wei's fleet destroyed. Major cities reduced to rubble. Yet for the first time since the invasion, Earth's orbital space was clear of Arvani ships. They're regrouping at Saturn, reported Intelligence Director Julian Bakey, manipulating the tactical display to show Arvani fleet movements. Our victory has triggered something unprecedented in their command structure. They've requested reinforcements from their central authority. Dr. Torres, recently evacuated from Titan before the Arvani counterattack, destroyed the research base, presented his analysis of captured Arvani commanders. His once pristine lab coat was now stained and torn, his appearance haggard after the narrow escape. They're experiencing a cognitive crisis, Torres explained, displaying brain scans of a captive Arvani officer. Their strategic models are built on predictable opponent behavior, but humans keep defying their statistical models by choosing seemingly irrational self-sacrifice over logical surrender. Admiral Rice studied the data with narrowed eyes. Can we exploit this further? Expand the range of the neural disruptors? We're working on it, Torres nodded. But there's something else you need to see. A breakthrough came from interrogating an Arvani subcommander whose neural implants had been damaged in combat. Unlike his perfectly logical brethren, this individual could grasp human motivations through his now imperfect logic circuits. The captive Arvani sat in the reinforced cell, crystalline features catching the light as it turned toward the observation window. You wish to understand, it stated in halting English. Why are your people so fixated on conquest? Admiral Rice asked. Surely there are more efficient paths to resources or knowledge. Efficiency is purpose, the Arvani replied. The precursors created us to bring optimal order to biological chaos. 17 species before you submitted when defeat became mathematically certain. None forced retreat. This unprecedented outcome has triggered priority alert to collective homeworld. What does that mean? Director Mbeki demanded. Main battle fleet comes, the Arvani replied, its crystalline features shifting in what might have been admiration. Your species calculates lowest survival probability, yet fights with highest intensity. This equation does not resolve. The command room fell silent as the implications sank in. Commander Wei, recently promoted to admiral for his leadership during Operation Persistence, broke the silence. How much time do we have? 3 Earth months, the Arvani replied. Your resistance, impressive but terminal. Rei's expression hardened. Tell your leaders this. Humans don't need favorable odds. We just need a fighting chance. The following weeks saw Earth transform into a global war factory. The brief respite from Arvani occupation allowed humanity to repurpose captured alien technology and rebuild their defensive capabilities. Torres led a team of scientists working around the clock to improve the neural disruptors and understand Arvani technology. Their faster-than-light drives operate on principles we've theorized but never implemented, Torres explained during a high-level briefing. With the examples we captured, we can adapt them to our larger vessels within weeks, not decades. Admiral Wei oversaw the reconstruction of Earth's fleet, incorporating both salvage Arvani technology and uniquely human innovations the aliens would never anticipate. Training centers worldwide prepared a new generation of pilots and crew, compressing years of instruction into intense weeks. We're still outnumbered and outgunned, Wei acknowledged during a strategy session. But so was Captain Chen when she took out their flagship. So were we at the Kuiper stand. The Arvani keep calculating our defeat because they can't quantify human determination. 39 days after the liberation of Earth, long-range sensors detected a massive energy signature at the edge of the solar system. The Arvani main battle fleet had arrived earlier than predicted. Initial scans confirmed humanity's worst fears, a force 5 times larger than the invasion fleet they had barely survived against. They've adapted their tactics, Admiral Wei noted grimly, studying the incoming fleet formations. They're maintaining greater distances between command ships, implementing redundant control systems. They've learned from their defeats. In the silence that followed, Dr. Torres cleared his throat. There's something else we should consider. The captured Arvani mentioned 17 other species conquered before us. What if we're not the only ones who refuse to accept permanent defeat? Admiral Rice looked up sharply. You're suggesting we look for allies, species already under Arvani control. The Arvani have never faced a species that forced them to retreat, Torres replied. We've accomplished something unprecedented, and that knowledge might be more valuable than any weapon. As the command staff debated this radical proposal, a junior communications officer interrupted with an urgent message. Admiral, we're detecting an unidentified vessel approaching from the Centauri system. It's not Arvani, and it's responding to our hails in perfect English. On the main screen appeared a being unlike anything humanity had encountered, vaguely humanoid but with iridescent skin and multifaceted eyes. People of Earth, it said in a melodious voice, word of your resistance has reached even our distant world. The Tellurians wish to learn from those who accomplish what we thought impossible, defiance of the collective. For the first time since the invasion began, hope kindled in humanity's heart, not just of survival, but of victory. Dr. Torres stood before the United Earth Security Council with a proposal so audacious it bordered on insanity. The chamber, carved deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, hummed with tension as military and civilian leaders considered his words. The Arvani have conquered 17 species before us, Torres explained, gesturing to the holographic display showing star systems under Arvani control. Each one calculated their odds, determined resistance was futile, and surrendered. But what if we could show them humanity's greatest strength? Which is General Okafor asked, skepticism evident in her voice. Her new prosthetic arm, a replacement for the one lost during the liberation of Earth, gleamed under the chamber lights. Hope against impossible odds, Torres replied. And our neural disruptor technology. Admiral Wei, recently promoted after the Jupiter victory, supported Torres' plan. If we can't match them in numbers, we match them in allies. We contact these conquered species and show them that the invincible Arvani can be defeated. The Council approved the mission with one dissenting vote. The newly christened Alliance vessel Impossible, built around Earth's most advanced stealth technology and equipped with reverse-engineered Arvani FTL drives, departed for the nearest subjugated world, Tellus Prime, whose octopoid inhabitants had lived under Arvani rule for 3 centuries. Commander Sophia Chen, a veteran of the Kuiper Stand, led the diplomatic mission. Her crew represented Earth's best, scientists, soldiers, and specialists chosen for their ability to think beyond conventional limits. Approaching Tellus Prime, announced Navigator Kareem as the Impossible dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system. Heavy Arvani presence detected. Orbital platforms, patrol vessels. Activate stealth systems, Chen ordered. Take us in slowly. Let's see what 300 years of Arvani rule looks like. What they found was a civilization in resigned servitude. The Tellurians, brilliant mathematical engineers before their conquest, had accepted Arvani dominance as inevitable once their resistance casualties passed 20%. Their magnificent spiral cities now served as resource processing centers for the collective, their natural creativity channeled into optimizing extraction efficiency. Using Torres' improved neural disruptors, the human team temporarily disabled Arvani monitoring systems and made contact with the Tellurian underground, a small faction that preserved their species' history and cultural identity in secret. Your arrival defies calculated probabilities, the Tellurian elder told the human delegation, its tentacled limbs expressing agitation. Liberation remains statistically impossible. Commander Chen didn't argue with statistics. Instead, she showed the Tellurians something they hadn't seen in generations: footage of humans celebrating after the Jupiter victory, rebuilding devastated cities, and memorializing their fallen with renewed determination rather than surrender. We don't measure victory by survival odds, she explained. We measure it by whether the cause is worth fighting for, regardless of cost. The concept was so alien to the Tellurians that many initially rejected it as illogical. Yet as Chen's team shared the technical specifications for the neural disruptors, something awakened in the elder's multifaceted eyes, the faint ember of a fire long extinguished. Perhaps, it said slowly, our calculations have been incomplete. The mission to Tellus Prime succeeded beyond expectations. Within days, underground resistance cells formed across the planet, armed with human-provided neural disruptors and something more valuable: tactical unpredictability the Arvani couldn't counter. Similar missions to other conquered worlds followed. The mineral-based Thid, the gaseous Sidari, the hive-minded Vex. Each species had unique abilities and technologies the Arvani had harnessed for their empire. Each retained the memory of freedom, however distant, and each responded to humanity's message: resistance is not futile if you don't know when to quit. Representatives from these worlds traveled secretly to Earth to witness human defiance firsthand. They marveled at cities bearing massive scars yet pulsing with reconstruction activity, at the global memorial where billions of humans gathered to honor their dead while simultaneously preparing for continued resistance. Your cities are half rubble, observed the mineral-based Thid ambassador, its crystalline body absorbing sunlight as it surveyed the ruins of Paris. Yet you act as though you've already won. That's humanity's secret, Zara Okafor explained, now serving as Earth's diplomatic liaison after her legendary leadership during the global uprising. We don't know when to quit. Some species call it statistical insanity. We call it faith. As the countdown to the Arvani main fleet's final approach continued, something unprecedented occurred. Ships from formerly subjugated worlds began arriving at Earth, not as observers but as allies. Each brought unique technologies, strategies, and renewed determination to fight oppressors they'd once calculated as unbeatable. The Tellurians contributed their mathematical genius, creating algorithms that predicted Arvani responses with uncanny accuracy. The Cthid provided crystal-based weapons that disrupted Arvani communications. The Sideri offered atmospheric manipulation techniques that could shield Earth from orbital bombardment. Admiral Wei stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned flagship Defiant II, watching as the Allied fleet grew day by day. Ships of designs never before seen in Earth's skies moved into defensive formations around the planet. "We're still outnumbered," his tactical officer noted. Wei smiled. "But for the first time, we're not fighting alone. And our new allies have learned humanity's most important lesson." "Sir, that impossible is just a calculation, and calculations can be wrong." The Arvani main battle fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the Heliopause, a force 5 times larger than the invasion fleet humanity had barely survived against. Thousands of crystalline vessels arranged in perfect geometric formations, each a masterpiece of mathematical precision and technological superiority. Their transmission displayed their supreme commander, a being of such perfect crystalline symmetry that several human officers instinctively recoiled. Its voice resonated with harmonics designed to inspire submission. "Your resistance has been noted as statistically significant, but ultimately irrelevant," the Supreme Commander stated without emotion. "Our primary battle group brings 99.997% certainty of your extinction. Submit now for partial preservation of your genetic material." The response came not just from human leaders, but from the united coalition of formerly subjugated species. Admiral Wei stood on the bridge of the Defiant II, flanked by commanders from 12 different worlds, as he delivered their answer. "We've calculated something your algorithms missed," Wei replied, his calm voice belying the tension gripping every being in the Allied fleet. "The exponential power of inspired allies against mathematical certainty. Your sample size was too small. You only faced each of us alone. Now you face all of us together, and we've discovered something in common." He paused, allowing the ship-to-ship transmission to reach every vessel in both fleets. "We don't know when to quit." The battle that followed lasted 9 days. The Arvani deployed perfect formations and textbook strategies that would have guaranteed victory against rational opponents. Instead, they faced humans who executed maneuvers with 90% fatality probabilities, Tellurian ships that transformed into debris clouds only to reassemble behind enemy lines, and Cthid vessels that deliberately collided with Arvani ships to disable their neural command centers. Most devastating to the Arvani were the neural disruptors, now amplified by Tellurian mathematics and Sideri quantum engineering. For the first time in their 1,000-year expansion, the Arvani experienced true fear, not the calculated risk assessment their designers had programmed, but the existential terror of facing opponents who embraced probable death for possible victory. On the 3rd day, the Arvani adapted their tactics, focusing overwhelming firepower on human vessels. "They've identified us as the unpredictable element," Soraya Patel observed as Allied casualties mounted. "Good," Wei replied grimly. "While they focus on us, the Tellurian and Sideri contingents can execute Phase Gamma." By the 5th day, Earth's atmosphere glowed with the energy of orbital combat. Populations sheltered in underground bunkers watched through remote feeds as their planet's fate hung in the balance. Dr. Torres worked feverishly with alien scientists to modify the neural disruptors for maximum effect against the Arvani flagship. "The modulation must be precise," cautioned the Tellurian chief scientist, its tentacles manipulating equipment with incredible dexterity. "Too broad, and it affects our own ships. Too narrow, and the Arvani communications system filters it out." On the 7th day, a critical breakthrough. The combined research team successfully decoded the Arvani command frequency. "We can transmit the neural disruption directly through their own communication network," Torres reported to Admiral Wei, "but we'll need to get dangerously close to their command ship." In the final confrontation, Admiral Wei's flagship, The defiant II led what appeared to be a desperate charge against the Arvani command vessel. The massive alien ship, spanning nearly 3 kilometers of crystalline perfection, directed its main weapons array at the approaching human vessel. "They're predicting a 100% probability of our destruction," reported the tactical officer. We nodded calmly. Let them believe it. As the human ship approached on its apparent suicide run, thousands of allied vessels from the liberated worlds followed in its wake, not in an organized formation the Arvani could counter, but in chaotic vectors that defy tactical prediction. Neural disruptor at maximum charge. Taurus confirmed from the science station. Telemetry locked on their command frequency. All allied ships. Execute protocol defiance. Way ordered. Now. The combined neural disruption pulse that washed over the Arvani fleet was orders of magnitude more powerful than anything previously deployed, enhanced by Tellurian mathematical precision, and transmitted through the Arvani's own command network. It reached every vessel simultaneously. The effect was catastrophic for the invaders. Their perfect crystalline minds, designed for mathematical certainty, shattered against the irrational courage of species willing to risk everything for freedom. The Arvani, facing an enemy that refused to calculate odds or accept inevitable defeat, experienced something their species had never evolved to handle: existential uncertainty. When their neural withdrawal thresholds triggered simultaneously across the fleet, the retreat wasn't tactical, it was absolute. 3 years later, representatives from 22 formerly conquered species gathered on Earth to sign the Defiance Accords, establishing a new interstellar alliance. The Arvani, their empire of perfect calculation now in ruins, sent observers rather than conquerors. At the ceremony, Admiral Wei unveiled a monument bearing a simple inscription in every language of the Alliance. Victory belongs not to those with the highest probability of success, but to those who don't know when to quit. In the decades that followed, humanity's most valuable export wasn't technology or resources, but something the galaxy's subjugated species had forgotten existed: the audacity to defy overwhelming odds through sheer, magnificent persistence. As Wei later explained to a young cadet who asked about humanity's unlikely victory, the Arvani made a fundamental error. They believed that intelligent beings would always choose the path with the highest survival probability. They never understood that humans measure value differently, that some things are worth dying for, that defeat is only final when you accept it. The cadet considered this. Is that why we succeeded where 17 other species failed? Wei smiled, gazing up at the stars now filled with allies rather than enemies. We taught the galaxy the most human lesson of all. Impossible is just a word, not a destination.